this is my speech on why Pluto isn't a planet. My goal in this is to inform you on why this beloved planet was like originally reclassified to be a dwarf planet instead of one of the main 9 planets, and now 8 planets that we had at the time. So a little bit about me. I'm Bailey Gizzard. I'm here to inform you as to why this is not a planet anymore, and I'll teach you the different classifications a planet has to go through in order to be considered a mainstream planet, like we have like Jupiter, Mars, Saturn, all of that. About Pluto. Pluto was once considered a planet. It was the 9th planet from the sun. However, this planet was later excluded from the group. So Pluto was discovered a little around the 1800s, I believe. That's just off the top of my head. But Pluto is the planet right past Neptune. Its orbit is a little odd. As you can see here, it doesn't curve in like the rest of it. So sometimes it's actually closer to the sun than it is Neptune. And I'll get into why that is so important later. Pluto's size. Pluto is so tiny because it was originally, Pluto is so tiny that it was originally seen as a fuzzy dot. So even with the best of telescopes in the 1990s, when it was you're trying to analyze it, this is all you would see. It looks like, I don't know, it looks like just a laser pointer on the screen. But now with stuff like the Hubble and all of that, you can actually travel into space and see how Pluto really looks, which is, it's like a rocky planet with a good atmosphere, unlike Neptune that is a gaseous planet with a thick atmosphere, and that's about it. You can't touch ground like we can here on Earth. Its size causes it to be classified as a dwarf planet. A dwarf planet is a small, it's just like a planet, but except it's really, really small. Its size is less than Mercury, way less than Mercury. That's the size comparison. It's a little bit bigger than our moon, but it's still a dwarf planet. And I'll get into how this this size matters in this case. Dwarf planets are drastically different sizes than everyday planets, like I said before. It's smaller than Mercury, and Mercury is the smallest planet in our solar system as of current. The process of classification. First, you obviously have to see it. If you don't see it, how do you know it's out there? Then you classify whether it's gaseous or rocky. Gaseous is your gas giants like Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune. They don't really have a solid ground, as I said before. They just have big gases of different elements. It varies planet to planet. Size and orbit. Size matters, like I said before, because its size can put it in a different classification. As you see here, it leads to 2 different classifications, primary and secondary. The size and orbit. The orbit has to orbit the sun in order to be considered a primary planet. But the secondary planets actually are moons and satellites. They orbit other celestial bodies, such as our moon and other well-known moons like Phobos on Mars and stuff like that. Pluto's strange orbit. This is where we actually get into why Pluto is considered not a planet anymore, because technically Pluto does meet all those requirements. It does orbit the sun. It is rocky. It is all that we see here, except it's just very small. So who's to say that Pluto isn't a planet because of its size? Well, this is where we actually discover why Pluto isn't a planet. The orbit here is very elliptical. It's almost like a oval. Something a planet cannot do is intersect right here with another planet's orbit, as it does with Neptune's. Neptune's orbital plane comes right here, and Neptune actually intersects it right here. You can barely see it from where you are. But 1989, it did, and that is why. This is something planets cannot do. It cannot intersect orbital planes, and it cannot, drift off into space. It has to orbit the sun in a spherical orbit. As seen in the photo, Pluto's elliptical orbit compared to others, it intersects with Neptune's orbital plane at one point. Pluto's orbit is so strange because instead of being closer to its neighbor Neptune, it's actually more closer to the sun at one point, and than Neptune is. And that is something unheard of as a planet. 3 reasons for its reclassification. Well, I'm going to re-go over this and make sure to reclassify this for you, that way you can understand. Size. Pluto is a much smaller planet than any planet, therefore it is a dwarf planet. It's one of the many dwarf planets we have beyond the Kuiper belt. I forgot how to pronounce it. And it is just, like I said, very, very small. Unfitting classification. Pluto neither fits and doesn't fit classification of planets. So if I'm being honest, it doesn't fit the size classification, but it does at the same time. It's a special case. orbit. Neptune's orbit intersects Neptune's orbital plane, like I said before, which cannot happen. The orbits of this planet is like the main key here, because like we all have come to accept that is a dwarf planet, but like who's to say Mercury isn't a dwarf planet, because it's the smallest planet in the solar system. That's why we have as many different classifications, because like if we do not set this in place, who's to say that certain moons will be considered planets, because like this, it will create a lot of loopholes in our solar system. If we create these loopholes, then who's to say like moons like Phobos would be a planet? Like we would have so many planets in our solar system that we even consider asteroids planets. This is why, even though this planet is beloved, we must look at the facts instead of just our feelings over this, and we just have to come to terms that Pluto is not a planet.